Hey everybody, assessing text and the reader. I'm going to start by talking about assessing the text and how I chose the books that I did for my book club. I'll start by saying that I'm a strong believer in paired readings, or using nonfiction and fiction books together to help students build their own knowledge on the subject, and it also shares words and vocabulary interchangeably between the fiction and nonfiction. And in fact, my whole research paper was on this one. So without further ado, what I did was, in my book club, I wanted to choose fictional stories that I could relate to our science lesson. Our science lesson is going through different habitats, different environments, and the food web and the food chain. Carnivores, herbivores, predator, prey, and where they place in the food web, and how does, removing say one animal, one species from a habitat, how does that change? What are the characteristics of the habitat? And so I want to choose fictional stories that are going to build a student's knowledge base and understanding of what we're discussing in our nonfiction, very, very structured, very stringent science textbook and lesson. And because I wanted them to apply the knowledge from science to our fictional book to better understand that. But then, if you're struggling in the more structured world of science textbook and these difficult content area words, you're going to gain a better understanding and be able to build your knowledge of those inversely through the reading of the fictional text, because it follows that common pattern of characters, setting, problem, solution, and you're going to be able to see a lot of the same words and ideas in the fictional text that are going to better your understanding of what we're talking about in our science lesson. So, having shared with you my science lesson and what I'm doing, I decided, this is in a 5th grade classroom, and I decided to choose a book that's, according to AR, right on the 5th grade reading level. It's from a popular book series, so I think with it being a popular series, I'm hoping that some students are, one, at least familiar with it. Maybe they've read some books to the series and already have an interest in here. If not, it's engaging. It's an interesting story of adventure and friendship, and how to get along if you want to go into the life lessons and character, the pillars of character of they have to work together, these bears, polar bear, black bear, brown bear, and set their differences aside and work together to go search through. So Aaron Hunter and the Seeker series, it's popular, it's right on grade level, it's the melting sea, so it's going into that polar region. They're on a hunt for food. They hunt and kill prey in the story. So that brings us back to the whole science discussion where we can talk. It has it starts off with a map of the area, and so it has a few at the beginning of, say, every chapter. It has a brief little picture, say, of one of the characters or a situation that they're in. Really small, but it's not too much text on a certain page. It's big print, and so a lot of conversation, and so it's kind of broken up into an easier readability in text. So I think this is right on point for a 5th grader, and this is the anchor text that I chose to use, and that's the way that it's set up. So I'll begin by going my one step lower text, and I decided to choose this because, again, they're all connected. This one also tells the story of a polar bear and her cub, and they're waiting for ice. So the similarities they're incredible. Polar bear, her cub. Now they have friends. This one is just polar bears and her cub and a few other polar bears, but they're doing the exact same well, they're actually doing the complete opposite thing. They're waiting for the ice to return, that way they can go and explore for more food. Where in my anchor text, they're in fact trying to search for food and get that before the ice melts away. So, with that being said, if we go through and we share both stories during our science lesson, they're going to better grasp the concepts that are introduced in science about how the polar region works and how the ice melts, it comes back, it melts, it comes back, and that whole cycle. So this is, according to AR, Accelerated Reader, this is on a 4th grade level, and I think this is really good for struggling readers for the fact that it is a picture book, small chunks of text, so they can kind of build that confidence reading through, knowing that they've read several pages in a short amount of time of reading. They have the pictures that are going to help with their comprehension. They can refer back to the pictures to help them understand what's going on in the words if they're struggling or stumbling over some words. So again, I'm personally just a big fan of children's books, picture books, and I think this is a really good one for any of your struggling readers, where they can use the pictures to refer back and help them get through the context of the story and words that are in the text. One step up is the Iceberg Hermit. Again, you can see right here on the cover, there's another polar bear. What's the problem? Well, it's a bit different from the others, but it's young man Alan, he shipwrecks, he's the only surviving guy, so it's a really engaging, really exciting story of survival and strength in a weird land. Now, he speaks a lot about the characteristics of how the polar region moves and works. So that's why I chose that too, because we're going right back into my science lesson. It's connected to my other 2 stories. He actually befriends and trains a baby polar bear, which is a bit different, and that I'm sure is going to spark conversation as we understand all the characteristics of a polar bear and how unlikely that most likely is in a real world situation. Although this does allude to the fact of it being a true story, which is really neat. But this is one step higher according to Accelerated Reader. It's on a 6th grade level. It has a much more, much stronger sentence and story structure. It can be intimidating. There are no illustrations. There's a lot of text printed smallly on a lot of pages, you know, and but if any of your advanced readers are willing to delve into this, they're going to be hooked instantly. Chapter 1, page 1, they're going to be hooked, and I'm telling you, it's a book that you can't set down because it's engaging, it's exciting, and it's one of those just really well written stories, which is also, I think, a good thing, that if it's a well-written story, that's, I think students, even though they're engaged in the story, they're going to pick up on a few of those characteristics of good storytelling that hopefully they'll be able to use in their own writings. My 4th book, Assessing Text, this is pretty much a fun book. It is not a fiction book, but I think it's a great addition to the science lesson. Lots of pictures, illustrations, captions, all types of subtitles, maps, pictures, plants. This is a science book, and it's going to, it's just fun. It's more, you know, make stuff fun. Maybe, you know, science textbooks, do they have these things? Yes, they have illustrations, they have captions. Is it as fun as this book? Probably not. And if you give the students the freedom to kind of explore this on their own will and their own time, they're going to be a little more inclined to do that anyhow. So that was the 4th book in my text set, and I had all connected to my anchor text, all connected to my science lessons. So that's how I assessed and chose my books. As far as assessing the reader, I'll go into this really quickly, what I think. Over the last semester and semesters previous to that, it's a pretty common assessment to you know, time a student, see how many words they read, see how fluent they are. Last semester we called it DIBELS. I know at my school we use Project Read, which is pretty much the exact same assessment. You take that minute and you see how many words they have. We can do all of that, you know, or you can just kind of float the classroom as a student reads, maybe not aloud, because I think that adds in extra stressors, and you might not get a true assessment as to how fluent they are reading. But just, you know, take the chance to float around, listen to a student reading out loud, maybe not in front of the entire class, maybe one-on-one if that's where they feel more comfortable. But you're going to look for what? Their accuracy, their rhythm, their cadence, their prosody. You want to check for their word recognition. Are they seeing all this new vocabulary that we're discussing in both science, nonfiction, in the fiction books? Are they able to finally use their knowledge of prefixes, suffixes, and read through these words and recognize them and figure them out on their own, or are they still stumbling over them? So I think that's a good assessment as far as fluency goes. As far as text comprehension, how am I going to assess the student in that? I have mixed feelings, because on, I think, most every lesson that I've tried to show, I mentioned before, I like to hit on all cylinders. I think I've said before, where I want to read, I want to write, I want to talk, I want to listen, I want to work in groups, I want to do all of this. But I think when you're assessing a student as far as comprehension goes, I'd be a little weary. Now, is it a great assessment to check for all their skills? If they can take what they read, compose a short story, write it down, you know, read that story back to you as a teacher or to their class, absolutely. You can check for so many things there. But if you're just checking for comprehension, I truly believe that we can just simply ask the student to tell us what they've read, and listen to that and see if they're hitting all the big points. Are they telling you everything that they need to tell you? Are they getting off track? Are they telling you, are they focusing on things that aren't necessarily so important in the story? And I think when you do that and just let them verbally tell you, and you just kind of talk it out, I think you get a truer assessment of their comprehension of the story, because you're taking away, maybe they're not a good writer, maybe they're not a good typer, maybe they don't speak well, maybe they're just not comfortable. And so get them comfortable, just listen to them. I think it's a better assessment. That's my thoughts, that's my feelings, that's exactly what I did as far as my book assessment. That's how I would approach assessing students. Simply, I think, to get the truest assessment as far as fluency and comprehension goes. I hope y'all found some of these videos interesting. They've been a lot of fun. Peace out, guys.